All right. Hi guys, and welcome to my art studio. I kind of like shoved most of my art stuff in the back so you can't really see it. It's mostly just plants here, but this video is going to be Q&A based. So you're gonna ask some questions, which you guys have already. I'm just gonna choose some questions off of my Instagram that you guys submitted. And yeah, you'll get to know a little bit more about me. All right, let's begin. So the first question I have is, what kinds of paint and paint brushes do you use? So the type of paint that I use for my oils, I actually have one here. It's Winsor & Newton. I really love their oils. The paint brushes that I use are synthetic always. I don't use real animal hair, and I just get them from stores like Michael's. My acrylics, I think I use, let me actually grab some acrylics because I haven't used them in a long time. So the acrylics that I use are golden, and I haven't painted with acrylics for quite some time now, so I haven't used them in a long time. I definitely feel that the oil paints are better quality, and I honestly just love oil paints. Next question. What inspires you? I get this question all the time. And it's so much easier to say what doesn't inspire me, which is nothing. So I am inspired by color, I'm inspired by sound, I'm inspired by dreams, I'm inspired by conversations with people, I'm inspired by other artists. I'm constantly inspired. And how long does each painting take? You'd actually probably be surprised to know that my oil paints take anywhere from 6 months to a year to be fully done. The actual painting process doesn't take too long. Sometimes it'll take me a week or 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe a month max. I think the quickest painting I've ever done in oil has been probably about 5 days or so, 4 or 5 days. My acrylic paintings they're really quick because the paint dries so fast, but that's why it takes so long with oils, is because it takes 6 months to a year to dry depending on how many layers you have, what kind of paint you used, and how much paint you put on there. So yeah, after 6 months to a year, my paintings will be fully dry and I'll be able to varnish them and they're done. So they take forever. My acrylics, I can let them dry for a month, 3 weeks, and varnish them and they're done totally. So acrylics take a lot less time. What do you feel your past lives were? And I love this question because I was thinking about this just the other day, actually. I mean, it's something that I constantly think about, but about a couple months ago, I had a dream about what I think my next incarnation is going to be. And she was an Asian woman. My past lives, I have a feeling that, I mean, everybody kind of says Egypt. And I don't know if it's necessarily Egypt, but I do feel that it's some kind of dry climate, if that makes sense. Like some kind of desert feel. I think I've had just way too many past lives that they are all kind of like mesh together in my dreams. But yeah, I feel really tied to dry climates, desert style climates, and they feel very familiar to me. So maybe something with that. What is your cultural background? So my parents are from Grenada, which is a very small island in the Caribbean. My dad was born in Trinidad and Tobago, and my mom was born in Grenada, and they met in Grenada. They moved here when they were in their late teens, early 20s, and just had a bunch of kids. So I am one of 5 sisters total, or 5 girls total. I have 4 sisters, and we're first generation Americans. Yeah, so that is pretty cool. I have been to Grenada. I used to go every summer. I still have a lot of family over there. Shout out to you guys. And it's absolutely beautiful. It's beautiful. All right. What is your favorite book? Which I love this question. So my favorite book has to be this one right here, which I'll try and do a zoom in, but it's called The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. And if you can see, it has tape on it, and the pages on the inside are like highlighted. There's writing on the cover. Like, this thing has been through some stuff. And it's my favorite book because it's just the best. Every time I read it, just something new pops out, because it's whatever you need that's relevant in your life is going to stick out to you. So every time I read it, it's like I'm reading it for the first time, because something new always strikes me. This book has been with me forever. I've taken it on multiple vacations, and I was even reading it to my students in Mexico when I lived and taught there for a little bit. So definitely that. Anything by Paulo Coelho, I'm gonna love. Anything by Gary Zukov, I'm gonna love. Anything by Eckhart Tolle, I'm gonna love. I have just some amazing, Brene Brown, amazing authors out there. All right, next question. What is the most painful lesson you've learned and the most recent lesson? Probably that you can't force someone to change. You can't force someone to want to do what you think is better. It's hard to not believe that what you think the best is for someone isn't necessarily the best. And that was a rough thing I learned that day. Your most recent lesson. I've had so many recent lessons, thankfully, and they've all been gentle, which is something that I'm consciously trying to do, is learn my lesson the first time that it knocks on the door, and not the 5th time when my door is being busted down. So thankfully, my lessons have been a little bit more, I understand the first time around, so it hasn't gotten to that point. I guess when I was growing up, I always felt, and the parenting styles of my parents were always, what did you do for that day? Which can be really good, because it starts to get you in this mindset that it's good to do things during the day that are constructive towards your person. But a lot of the times, now that I'm older, I feel that I'm not really worthy if I'm not putting my energy into something. And that can be frustrating, just kind of trying to find this balance between growth is really, really good, but you're still worthy and capable, and you're still a good person if you're not working towards something all the time. So a lot of times I'll feel guilty if I take breaks, or I'll feel guilty if I sit down on my phone, not doing anything. I feel like I should just be, hustling and grinding, but it is really good to take those breaks, because when you're hustling and grinding, a lot of times you're not reflecting. And there definitely is that balance, because you can hustle and grind down a pathway for 15 years, and then the moment that you sit down and reflect, you're like, oh, well, I should have totally taken this other path. And I probably would have if I would have just slowed down, shut myself off from everything, and reflected. that makes sense. What's one talent you have other than painting? I love how some of these questions, like they have to do with painting, but a lot of them are just like you guys are trying to get to know me as a person, which I really appreciate. A talent that I have other than painting is gardening. I'm a good gardener. I love to sing and I love to play the guitar. I play the acoustic. I've played the acoustic since, I think it's been about 10 years now. I'm a great cook, and yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I can tie a cherry stem with my tongue. People don't believe that, but I totally can do it. What is your favorite painting that you've made? I feel connected, obviously, to all my pieces. But one piece that I feel like a kind of special connection to is my piece called Dharma. There are 3 levels in the background that are 3 different types of topography. That one is my favorite piece, the one that I feel most connected to. I just feel very spiritually tied to that piece. Who are your favorite artists? Obviously, Dali. I love Dali. Joshua Mays is a great artist. I feel so spiritually connected to his pieces. How did you know you were ready to take the plunge to creating art full time? Long answer short, you're never really ready. Well, maybe you are ready, but you just never feel that way. And so I didn't feel like I was ready, but I was just kind of fed up with all the positions that I've had not being effective. Kind of just like frustrated with the system, and I guess you could say burnt out. I was a little bit burnt out for a while since I had been doing it for so long. But yeah, I just, like, fear is always going to be there. It's always going to be in the back of my mind, but it's important to keep taking those steps regardless of how afraid you are. So I just put in my 2 weeks one day, and I was like, I'm going to try something totally different. And I think it's kind of like being sick and tired of being sick and tired, in a way, at least in my mind at that time. I was just kind of frustrated with everything. I was ready to scrap it all and make a new start. And if there's anything that I have done in my life that is so relevant to my art now, it's the social work that I've done. And I can make a whole video on that, but that's for another time. What have you learned since quitting your last full-time job? Practically, like technically, I've learned an abundance of skills. I've learned how to market myself, which I had never done before. I've learned how to speak publicly, which was always a difficult thing for me to do. I've learned how to make booths and learn how to market myself within those booths at, like, you know, art festivals and just like here, little odd and end markets here in the city that I live in and other cities. Another skill or thing that I learned is to broaden my sanctity when it comes to creating art. So another way to say that is when I'm in my studio, it's so easy to hone in and focus on the art that I'm creating. But when I'm around other people, you have to answer questions. You have to, you know, constantly deal with people coming up because they're so interested in what you're doing, which I absolutely love. And they want to engage with you. They want to engage with that. They want to take pictures. They want to ask you about what your inspiration is. They want to ask you about, you know, all the products that you use, and if you have like an Instagram and where they can buy your stuff and what's your website. So a lot of the times you have to kind of balance or mitigate the actual art creating process with the public. And when I get in the zone, a lot of the times I feel honed in, and you can't really be fully honed in as much as you want when you're doing art in public. And so that is definitely something that I am still on my way trying to cope with, I guess is the word. But yeah, so I try and do pieces here that I am willing to just totally let myself be enveloped in. And I plan my pieces for when I'm doing public art. So I'll make sure that I don't use oil because it's so greasy. I'll make sure that I use something that is quick to dry and maybe a painting that isn't as demanding mentally as when I'm working in my studio space. Next question. What is something you struggle with in relationships? These are excellent questions. One thing that I struggle in romantic relationships and platonic relationships is that sometimes I don't talk because I feel like in a more gentle sense, it sounds harsh, but it's kind of like, what's the point? I feel like the people that I'm around, they've already thought about what I'm going to talk about or what I was wanting to talk about at the time. And that's something that I'm slowly still learning is that, yeah, people actually want to hear what you have to say. You have something unique to bring into every conversation. And a lot of the times it's brand new shit that nobody's thought about, which is crazy to me. Like, I'm so in my head a lot of the times that I think what I'm thinking about is what other people are thinking about as well, or have thought about at some time. But a lot of times that's not the case. So just when I feel like I have an idea, just saying it anyway, which there's this little part of me that kind of like rolls my eyes at opening my mouth in general, especially in social situations, because I feel like I really want to understand what everybody else is saying and just solely give them feedback that I understand. But taking the mic and taking that spotlight time, I feel like maybe it's a thing with minorities as well, is we don't want to feel like we are hogging any kind of spotlight. So when we do take the mic, we're going to say things as effectively as possible in the shortest amount of time as possible. And I think that is something that causes some anxiety in social situations, especially when I dilly-dally and mumble and jumble. Kind of like how I've been doing this. Oh my gosh, I think that is it. Yeah, so thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for sitting and listening to this video. Again, it is something that I find is very important because a lot of times I don't think that the things I have to say are new or important, but I do want to take the effort and connect with you guys on a deeper level. Share a little bit more about myself, and thank you so much for joining in. I appreciate it. See you guys next time.